Millionaire reveals heartwarming challenge, fix the generator and unlock an incredible love story. Joe Becker stood behind the worn workbench of his father's auto shop, grease-stained hands poised above the toolbox, ready to dive into another day. Maplewood, the town that hugged the edges of the forest, had its heart beating in rhythm with the laughter of its residents, a sound that had once filled the shop alongside the scent of motor oil and fresh coffee. The walls echoed memories of his wife, her laughter a melody he missed daily. Now, as clouds rolled in menacingly over Maplewood, Joe could almost hear that laughter fading. On a fateful afternoon, the skies unleashed chaos. The winds howled, rattling windows and sending loose debris tumbling through the streets. Panic spread among the community, especially for those elderly residents relying on power for medical devices. With darkness creeping in, a figure emerged from the storm, a silhouette that transformed into Emily, Maplewood's prodigal daughter. She had traded this haven for the glitz of city life, but that day, guilt had drawn her back. "I've got a challenge," she announced, eyes sparkling yet determined. "Whoever fixes the town's generator will not only restore power but also earn my heartfelt gratitude, maybe more." Whispers spread like wildfire. Joe felt their gaze. It was heavy with doubt and judgment. Could he, whose dreams had slipped through his fingers years ago, really rise to the challenge? Fear gripped him, a tightened chest and uneasy breath churning within. Yet, as his 15-year-old daughter, Lily, stood by with her mother's fierce spirit shining through her deep brown eyes, her words rekindled a flicker of hope. "You can do this, Dad. Show them who you are." What began as a personal endeavor transformed into a mission that brought the entire town together. Neighbors lined up to lend hands, each person offering their own talents. The carpenter brought wood, the electrician shared wires. Everyone wanted to regain that warmth they'd lost. Though shadows of old resentments lingered in the air, as Joe found allies among his community, he felt a quiet drive rise within him. Each day came with its share of setbacks, but with every attempt, that drive began to bloom into something greater. As tools clattered and laughter returned to the shop, Joe grappled with lingering self-doubt, feeling torn between pride and vulnerability. Would he truly be enough? Each setback forced him to confront the stark reality of living in a town where wealth often dictated worth. Yet, as the connection with Emily grew beneath the surface, he recognized that love and compassion outweighed bank accounts. In a town where people gathered to share dreams, the power to summon hope lay not just within machines, but in the hearts surrounding him. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With hopes running high, and with days winding down, Joe stood at the precipice of both disaster and redemption. The generator's hum felt distant, nearing the culmination of their efforts, but the storm raged on. Could he prove himself, not just as a mechanic, but as a father, a man who could rise against the currents and earn respect? As the final turn of the wrench lay bare before him, the generating whir of hope loomed larger than ever. Would he, Joe Becker, finally find his place both in his community and in the heart of a remarkable woman? Joe felt the weight of the moment press against his chest as he turned the last bolt on the generator. The shop had transformed into a buzzing hive of activity. Volunteers worked tirelessly, their energy pulsating through the air, mixing with the sounds of raucous laughter and shouts of encouragement. But for Joe, it was as if time had slowed, leaving him wrapped in uncertainty. His hands seemed to tremble slightly as he wiped the sweat from his brow. He stole a glance at Emily, who was helping Lily fit wires in place. Her focus was unwavering, yet her brow furrowed with an intensity that he admired. Joe's heart twisted at the sight. In so many ways, she was the embodiment of returning hope, the light he never thought he would need again. "Dad, it's ready." Lily's voice rang out, pulling him from his thoughts. Her face glowed with enthusiasm, and for a moment, all Joe could see was a reflection of her mother in that bright smile. He took a deep breath, feeling anchored by the familiar rush of both pride and anxiety. "All right, let us do this," he replied, masking some of the uncertainty that churned within him. He stepped over to the generator, its metal exterior glistening under the buzzing fluorescent lights, a stark contrast to the disheveled state of the shop. His fingers moved instinctively, flipping switches and checking connections, each click sounding like a countdown. As the last switch flipped, the world around them seemed to hold its breath. The silence stretched, heavy with anticipation, as they all peered at the machine awaiting its fate. Then, without warning, the generator roared to life. The sound thundered in Joe's ears, a rippling note of joy that pulsated through every crevice of the shop. Lights flickered on, illuminating the faces of his friends, neighbors, and family. Cheers erupted like fireworks. The walls, once echoing memories of grief, now vibrated with shared triumph. Joe's heart surged as he looked at Emily. Their eyes locked, and he could see the surprise morphing into shared exhilaration as she joined the crowd celebrating this moment. Just then, a sharp gust of wind rattled the open window, sending a chill into the room that had been warmed by laughter and hope. Joe's gaze flickered toward the door as a sense of unease washed over him. Maplewood's storm might have receded, but he could feel the remnants of old grudges and unresolved tensions lurking at the corners. Lily nudged him, her voice a gentle reminder. "Dad, it's time to celebrate. You did it. Everyone did it." The cheers grew louder, but Joe's heart still pounded against the reality of their situation. He had faced fears, restored faith, and reignited connections in this town, yet could he truly heal the scars that lingered in the hearts of those who had doubted him? As if sensing his turmoil, Emily stepped beside him. "It's amazing what you've done, Joe. You brought everyone together," she said, her voice firm yet soothing. This was just the start. But just as hope began to solidify, a familiar figure entered the shop. Gil, the wealthiest man in Maplewood, and a thorn in Joe's side for years. "Impressive work, Becker," Gil said, a sly grin spreading across his face. "But tell me, are you ready for the next challenge? Because fixing an old generator is one thing, but can you fix your place here?" The crowd quieted, eyes shifting between Joe and Gil, the air thick with tension. Joe could feel the weight of their expectations, but more than that, he felt a whisper of doubt creeping back in. Could he really prove himself beyond this victory? Caught off guard, he took a deep breath, every inch of him aware that love, respect, and validation were never going to come easily. But at that moment, he felt Lily's hand clasp his. "What's next?" he asked with renewed determination, ready to face whatever lay ahead, not just for himself but for Lily, for Emily, for Maplewood. As the crowd erupted in nervous chatter, Joe realized he was standing on the brink of something greater than he had ever imagined, something that could redefine what it meant to belong. Would he be able to face the ultimate challenge that was more than just mechanical? And with that question lingering, his heart raced at what was to come. The silence that followed Gil's taunt felt heavy, pressing down on Joe like a lead blanket. He could see the curious eyes of their neighbors, the old and the young, waiting. They wanted a show, a comeback, and more importantly an answer. Joe's heart thudded painfully against his ribcage. He shifted his focus, stealing a glance at Emily. Her unwavering gaze seemed to say, "You can do this." That small spark of confidence ignited something within him. "I think I can have a pretty good go at it," he replied, his voice steadier than he felt. Gil chuckled softly, the sound dripping with condescension. "Good luck, Becker. You'll need it. But remember, actions speak louder than words." With that, he turned to leave, his back exuding self-satisfaction, as if he relished the challenge he'd lobbed at Joe. As the door swung shut, a swell of noise surged back into the shop, laughter and chatter spiraling up like a wildfire. Yet, beneath the excitement and camaraderie, Joe felt a thread of anxiety twist around him. Could he rise to the occasion? Lily, sensing her father's uncertainty, pulled on his sleeve. "Dad, let us show him." We can fix everything together. Her fervor was contagious, and he couldn't help but smile. Together, huh? I like the sound of that, he replied, ruffling her hair as he leaned down. The warmth of her small hand in his steadied him. He glanced at Emily again. She smiled at him encouragingly, and in her eyes he saw the belief she had in him, the conviction that made all the differences seem surmountable. All right, let us make a plan, he said, raising his voice to gather their attention. This is about more than just the generator. It's about reconnecting this town, about facing Gil on our own terms. His words ignited a chorus of nods and murmurs of agreement. The volunteers gathered closer, the fear melting away as the excitement bubbled again. They spent the next few hours brainstorming and devising strategies, transforming the shop back into that buzzing hive of creativity. It was electric, the pulse of togetherness, the shared determination to rise above the challenge Gil had laid out like a gauntlet. Joe felt the visibility of his absence dissipate as he immersed in the laughter and chatter of his community. Reinvigorated by their zeal, Emily stood beside him, her fingers deftly sketching designs for what they could create next. We need to think big, Joe. This isn't just about fixing the generator, it's about building a community that won't let the likes of Gil tear it apart again, she proposed. There was fire in her voice, and he found himself nodding in agreement. Right. So, how about we include everyone? A weekend festival? Lights, music, and local food? We could turn this place into a beacon, he replied, his heart racing as inspiration surged through him. Cutting-edge technology coupled with good old-fashioned fun, Emily added with a playful smirk. That's how we win them over. As they planned, Joe looked around the room. Faces brightened with the idea, neighbors leaning closer, sparking ideas, laughing. Could this be the answer they needed? Could one event truly revitalize Maplewood? But deep down, Joe felt another layer of responsibility. This wasn't just about defeating Gil or winning over the people who doubted him. This was about healing the wounds of a fractured town, a town that had been through so much. As the sun began to set, casting a warm golden glow inside the shop, Joe found himself lost in thought. He was standing at a crossroads that could lead to revitalization or disappointment. Could they truly resurrect the spirit of Maplewood? He caught Emily's eye, and for an instant, the world around them vanished. Questions bloomed in his mind. Could he really be the man everyone needed him to be? And there lay the real challenge, turning hope into action and unity into love. The stakes were rising, and as fear and excitement danced together, Joe wondered if he was ready to step into the unknown. With the sun dipping below the horizon, shadows crept into the corners of the shop, mirroring Joe's swirling thoughts. He could feel a burgeoning excitement in the air, yet an undertow of doubt clung to him like the lingering scent of burnt coffee. Could this festival really be the solution they were all hoping for? Emily cleared her throat. So, when do we start? We can't let Gil think he has gotten under our skin. Her eyes sparkled with determination, and for a moment, Joe caught a glimpse of the fearless spirit that had always inspired him. Tomorrow, we hit the ground running. We'll need volunteers, supplies, and a whole lot of creativity, he responded, the words rolling off his tongue more confidently than he felt inside. Lily tugged on his arm again, her eyes wide with excitement. Can I help? I want to be in charge of the games. Absolutely. You can be our game coordinator, Joe laughed, leaning down to her level. What do you have in mind? Bouncy castle. And maybe a pie-eating contest. She exclaimed, bouncing on her heels. Joe chuckled, the image bringing unexpected warmth to his heart. Even in the face of adversity, his daughter's innocence shone bright. A bouncy castle, huh? It's a deal. If it puts smiles on faces, we'll make it happen. As the evening continued, Joe felt a swell of gratitude for each person in the room. Neighbors began forming committees. One group started planning decorations, while another dove into logistics, approaching local businesses for sponsorships and donations. The shop buzzed into the night, every voice a note in a symphony of hope. But amidst their laughter, a weight lingered in the back of Joe's mind. What if they failed? What if Gil's shadow loomed larger than their efforts? "Hey," Emily said softly, noticing his distant gaze. "Are you all right?" "Just thinking, what if we don't pull this off?" he admitted, his voice low. She reached out, placing her hand gently over his. "Look around, Joe. You're not in this alone. This isn't about perfection. It's about bringing people together. That's what Gil doesn't understand." Her words sparked something within him, a flicker of resolve. "You're right. We've got each other. We can make this work, one step at a time." Just then, the door swung open and Charlie, the town's unofficial historian, walked in with a stack of old photographs. "Got something for everyone," he called out, placing the pictures on the table. Curiosity piqued, the volunteers huddled around as Charlie flipped through the memories. "These are from the last summer festival in Maplewood," he explained. Before the town lost its spark, the photos filled them with nostalgia. Smiling families, kids playing games, laughter spilling from every corner. For a moment, they were all transported to a happier time, a reminder that joy could be rekindled. Joe touched one of the pictures, his heart swelling with a mix of hope and determination. This is what we're aiming for. We can bring this back." As laughter echoed through the shop, his spirit lifted, emboldened by the past. They might just be on the brink of something extraordinary, but as the evening wore on, a new worry surfaced. What if Gil didn't just watch from the sidelines? What if he sought to sabotage them further? The thought clawed at Joe's thoughts, a shadow creeping back over the flicker of hope they had ignited. Emily caught his concerned expression again. "Joe, you still with us?" "Yeah, just thinking about Gil again." A knowing glance passed between them. They needed to be ready, not just for a fun festival but for whatever challenge came their way. Tomorrow was going to be critical, and Joe couldn't shake the feeling they were walking into a storm. But could they weather it together? As Joe looked around at all the eager faces, a new wave of determination crashed over him. They would face it all, together. But what exactly were they preparing for? He couldn't help but wonder, what would Gil do next? The next day dawned clear and bright, promising the kind of weather that could coax smiles from even the sourest of faces. Joe awoke early, the sunlight spilling into the shop like a warm embrace. With a renewed spirit, he grabbed a cup of coffee and stepped outside, taking in the familiar sights of Maplewood. The town had always felt like an extension of himself, its flaws and quirks lovingly stitched together like the patchwork quilts mothers made for their children. Could hear the shouts of kids playing in the distance, a reminder that life went on amidst uncertainty. Today, he thought, was going to be different. Today was the day they started reclaiming their joy. Inside the shop, preparations were in full swing. Tables and chairs were being arranged, colorful banners were being hung, and the air buzzed with excitement. Lily darted around, clipboard in hand, busy organizing volunteers for the games she had envisioned. Joe watched her, his heart swelling with pride. She was determined to make this festival a success, and it lit a fire in him to ensure it was more than just a gathering. It would be a turning point. Emily hurried in, carrying a box filled with supplies. "I hope you're ready," she called, her voice bright and infectious. "Local businesses have come through with donations. We've got everything we need for the game booths and contests." "Great. Let's set up the pie-eating contest area right by the bouncy castle," Lily shouted, bouncing on her toes, but amidst the cheer, Joe's mind flickered back to Gil. The thought of him loomed like an unexpected storm cloud over their bustling preparations. What would he do? Joe's gut churned with unease. He felt his determination begin to crack as the shadows of doubt tried to creep back in. "Joe," Emily said, pulling him back to the moment. "Are you still worrying about Gil?" "Maybe," he admitted. "It's hard not to think about it. I just hope he doesn't try to derail everything." "Then let's be ready for him," she replied firmly. "This isn't just a festival for us, it's for all of Maplewood." We have to show him we can't be torn apart that easily. Just then, Charlie entered, an expectant look on his face. I've got something for everyone, he said, raising a small generator above his head. This little beauty was gathering dust at the old hardware store. If it works, it will power the lights for the festival. Lily squealed in delight, her enthusiasm infectious. Let us see if it runs. If we can fire it up, we can have music and lights as the sun sets. Charlie placed the generator on the table, and they gathered around it, their expressions a mix of hope and curiosity. Okay, let us give it a shot, he said, pulling at the cords and switches. As they worked together, Joe felt a tense sense of camaraderie forming among them. This was about much more than just a festival, it was about unity, defiance against Gil's negativity. He watched as neighborhoods came together, old friends, and new faces, all laughing and lending a hand. Then, without warning, an ominous sound shattered the moment, a loud boom as the generator sputtered, smoke billowing out from its insides. The crowd gasped, retreating in shock. Joe's heart sank. I guess that wasn't supposed to happen, Charlie shrugged, but his sheepish grin only made the group chuckle. What if Gil's sabotage has begun? Joe whispered, glancing at Emily, who looked just as concerned. Or, she said, her tone light, it might just need some real love to get it going. Hope flickered inside Joe, and as Lily grabbed a toolbox, he saw determination return to the faces around him. Together, they could fix this. After all, it was just the first hurdle in a long race, and in a small town bound by memories and hope, perhaps a little inauspicious start wouldn't be enough to drown out the fire in their hearts. But as they leaned in to work on the generator, Joe felt a sudden chill, a whisper of impending trouble. He had a nagging sense that Gil wasn't finished yet. What other mischief might be lurking around the corner? The day was still young, and challenges were only beginning to unfold. The tension in the air hung thick as they surrounded the generator, the smell of burnt plastic mingling with the scent of fresh flowers in the shop. Joe clenched his fists, his mind racing at the thought of what would happen if they couldn't get this thing working. The festival relied on it, and so did their hopes for the future. Let me take a look, Joe offered, stepping up to Charlie's side. He could feel the eyes of his friends on him, their collective worry palpable. He lifted the lid carefully, the edges still warm from the explosion. What do you see? Emily asked, leaning in closer. Not sure yet. Just give me a second. He glanced over the tangled wires and bits of metal, his heart pounding. As he examined it, he could hear the distant sounds of laughter and excitement from the kids outside, a reminder of why they started this mission. Today was supposed to bring joy, not more chaos. But Gil's shadow loomed larger with every passing moment. Hey, focusing on the negative isn't going to help, Emily said gently. We've done this before, right? We can fix this together. Joe turned to her, his heart swelling with determination. You're right. Let us get to work. The four of them dove into problem-solving mode, tools clinking and conversation buzzing. Distractions turned into targeted focus, each person sharing ideas, no matter how far-fetched. Lily volunteered to hold a flashlight, while Charlie tinkered with the wires, carefully untangling them as if they were a series of knots in a child's shoelaces. Here, I think I might have a spare capacitor back at my shop, Lily shouted out, her voice brightening the mood. I'll run and grab it. Stay strong. Joe watched her go, her enthusiasm infectious. The thought that they could solve this issue together felt like a balm on his frayed nerves. He caught Emily's eye, and she gave him a soft smile that lit up the doubts swirling in his mind. Then, just as they felt a flicker of hope, a familiar voice broke through the laughter echoing outside. What's going on here? It was Gil. Joe's heart sank. He exchanged glances with the others, a collective sigh stole the optimism from the air. Gil strutted in, a smirk plastered across his face. Looks like you're in over your heads again. You really thought you could pull off a festival, didn't you? Not now, Gil, Joe said firmly, his voice lacking the strength he wanted to project. We're busy. Oh, I can see that. Busy trying to fail. Gil waved dismissively as if he were brushing away paper scraps. You think that a little effort is going to turn this mess into a celebration? You should know by now, it's just not in the cards for you. That resonated deep inside Joe. It struck at a familiar place, decades of hearing doubt that tugged at his sanity. But this time he wouldn't let it. He straightened up and took a step forward. You can try to tear us down, but we're here for each other. And that's more than you'll ever understand. Gil's gaze flickered, surprise mixing with irritation. He opened his mouth, but before he could respond, the generator made a sputtering sound that captured everyone's attention. Joe's heart raced again. Had they done it? Hope arched through him one more time. Keep working on it, Emily urged, her hand touching Joe's lightly, grounding him as his focus narrowed back to the generator. With renewed energy, they all leaned in, and a quiet determination settled over the group. As the generator coughed and sputtered back to life, a cheer erupted. Joe couldn't help but smile. He could feel the joy rising, intertwining with the bright sunshine streaming through the windows. Yet, just as they celebrated this small victory, Joe noticed Gil's blank expression shifting into something darker as he marched off. Something wicked was brewing in his eyes. What was Gil plotting now? Would he strike again before the festival even began? The thrill of unity and joy was in the air, but Joe could sense a storm coming, and this time, they would need to stand united through whatever came next. The generator hummed steadily, its gentle vibration filling the shop with a sense of accomplishment. Joe took a moment, allowing relief to wash over him. They had done it together, a small victory against doubt and chaos. See? I told you we could do it, Emily said, her eyes sparkling with joy. A grin stretched across Joe's face as he shared her excitement, a warmth blossoming in his chest. The laughter from outside grew louder, wrapped up in the infectious thrill of the festival's kickoff. Lily burst back into the shop, breathless, her hands raised in celebration. You guys won't believe it. The kids love the new surprise at the festival. They've been waiting all week. What surprise? Charlie asked, a hint of curiosity in his voice. Mr. Thompson agreed to let us have a petting zoo. Can you imagine? Kids with bunnies and goats, how cute is that? Lily radiated enthusiasm, and the group's spirits lifted even higher, but as Joe absorbed the joy shared among them, a shadow still crept into his mind. Gil had departed, but his words echoed in Joe's head, tugging at his worries. Would Gil really let them be? Joe, you good? Emily asked softly, pulling him from his thoughts. You look a little distant. He shook his head as if to expel the darkness. I'm fine. Just thinking about Gil. I can't help but feel he's not done with us yet. This festival means so much to everyone, and he could use it to sabotage us. Hey. Emily stepped closer, her voice steady like a comforting hand. We've faced obstacles before. He may try to undermine us, but we have each other. We're stronger together. Joe met her gaze, a renewed sense of conviction washing over him. You're right. We knew stepping into this would be tough. We can't let his negativity in. Not now. Not ever. As they spoke, Charlie and Lily joined in, their animated chatter about decorations and games filling the air. Joe felt a flicker of hope arise. They had faced this storm before, and they would weather it again. Minutes turned into hours as they prepared, setting up stalls and decorating. The shop buzzed with laughter and camaraderie. It felt like a dream, one that Joe wished would never end. But with every burst of joy, a creeping sense of dread loomed in the background. When dusk began to settle, transforming the sky into a palette of colors, a commotion outside caught their attention. Joe turned to see a crowd gathering, whispers mixing with shouts. What's happening? Lily asked, her brow furrowed with concern. Joe felt a knot form in his stomach. I don't know. Let us check it out. They raced outside, the energy of the crowd pulsating like a live wire. Joe's heart raced as he reached the edge of the crowd, pushing through to see what was unfolding. In the center stood Gil, holding a megaphone, his expression wild with a hint of malice. "Ladies and gentlemen, you all are in for a treat. I'm here to raise the stakes of this little festival." The surrounding chatter hushed, a collective breath held. Joe stood frozen, fear creeping up his spine. What is he planning now? As Gil's voice echoed, laughter from the festival faded, replaced by a thick tension. What challenge would Gil throw at them next? What could possibly unfold to threaten the joy they had worked so hard to build? The smile faded from Joe's face as he braced himself. Whatever lay ahead would test them in ways they couldn't yet imagine. But they had each other, and that had to count for something. How far would Gil go, and would they be ready to meet the challenge head-on? The megaphone crackled as Gil spoke, his voice dripping with mock enthusiasm. "I'm offering everyone here a rare opportunity. Whoever can keep their booth running the longest tonight, with only the supplies they have on hand, will win $1,000. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some were excited, others uncertain. Joe felt his stomach tighten again. A challenge designed to throw them off balance. "Are you kidding me?" Charlie muttered, shaking his head. "What's the catch, right?" Gil smirked, enjoying the moment. "No catch, just a little fun. Think of it as a test of your resourcefulness. I'm sure you all are up for the challenge." The crowd began to chatter again, some people rallying to participate while others looked back at Joe and his friends for guidance. Joe sensed the urgency in the air. This was it, game time. The festival they had poured their hearts into was suddenly at stake. "Guys, we need to come up with a plan," Joe said, his voice resolute. "If we're going to do this, we have to stick together. We can't let him tear us apart." "What do we have?" Lily asked, her eyes scanning the shop, filled with supplies for their booths. "We should work with what we've got, right?" "Right." Emily jumped in, her determination mirrored in the others' faces. "Let's decide who's doing what. We can mix it up, help each other out where we can." Joe felt a surge of confidence. They were ready to tackle whatever Gil threw at them. He quickly outlined the plan, organizing the group into teams. They divided their supplies, quickly brainstorming creative ways to keep their booths lively, figuring out how to showcase everything they had. It felt exhilarating. They were in this together. As the sun dipped further over the horizon, casting warm oranges and purples across the sky, energy buzzed around them. The music from the festival played in the background, and laughter coated the air like varnish, even amid the tension. Just as the teams dispersed to their booths, Joe briefly locked eyes with Emily. Her brow furrowed in determination, but the light in her gaze told him something more. She believed in them. A few minutes in, the first booth flickered and dimmed. A collective gasp escaped the crowd, but the cheers soon rose again as another booth lit up with enthusiasm. Joe felt the sting of pressure. They had to outlast this chaos. 15 minutes turned into 30 as the teams scrambled to make the most of what they had. Some booths showcased imaginative games, while others offered delightful treats. And then disaster struck. A loud pop sounded from the corner of the shop. Joe turned to see a cloud of smoke billowing out where their generator was set up. Panic threatened to take over. He sprinted toward it, only to find Gil lurking nearby, a smug expression on his face. Well, looks like your little operation just hit a speed bump," he taunted. Joe's heart thudded in his chest. "What did you do?" "Me? Nothing but raise the stakes. Good luck trying to keep your festival going without power." As worry washed over him, Joe felt a familiar surge of determination. They had come too far to lose everything now. "We've beaten challenges before. We can fix this." But would there be time? He glanced at Emily, Charlie, and Lily working frantically, unaware that their odds were dwindling. "Guys," Joe called out, his voice drowning in the thrum of the festival. "We need to fix the generator now." Eyes wide, they rushed towards him, but could they manage to solve this new crisis in time? Would they find a crack in Gil's chaotic game plan and turn the tide together, or risk losing it all? The stakes were higher than ever, but failure was not an option. As the festival lights began to dim, Joe felt fear creeping back in. Would they be ready for the fight to come, or was all their hard work about to slip through their fingers? Joe's heart raced as he sprinted toward the generator, smoke curling around him like a shroud of despair. He could see the gears were still turning, but the lights had dimmed, and that meant they were losing power fast. Panic was like a drumbeat in his ears, yet as he reached the generator, determination kicked in. "What's wrong with it?" Lily shouted as she joined him, her hands clasped in front of her, eyes scanning for any sign of hope. "I'm not sure," Joe said, his mind racing through possibilities. It just stopped. Emily and Charlie arrived, breathless but ready. "Here, let us see if we can reset it," Emily suggested, kneeling next to Joe. She opened the panel, digging through wires and circuits like a puzzle waiting to be solved. "Good idea," Charlie said, rolling up his sleeves. "I'll check the fuel first. You know, if it's out, we're out of luck." The crowd's chatter grew anxious, eyes glued to their little group, waiting for a miracle while booths around them kept buzzing with energy. The cheers, laughter, and music felt like a world away, a distant reminder of what they had worked to build. Come on," Joe muttered under his breath, tapping the side of the generator. He felt sweat beading on his forehead, the weight of the moment crashing down. This festival was their dream, a chance to show their community what they could accomplish together. "You know," Lily said, looking up from the mess of wires, "even if we don't win, I just want us to do our best. That's what really matters." Joe's heart twisted. She was right. This wasn't just about the money. He needed to remember the joy of creating something together, the bonds they'd built along the way. It wasn't just a contest, it was about community, about standing together in the face of adversity. "Fuel's good," Charlie announced, holding the container up in triumph, but Joe didn't miss the flicker of doubt in his friend's eyes. But something's definitely off here. Joe took a deep breath, focusing on the task at hand. "Let's try reconnecting this wire here," he suggested, pointing. "Lily, you hold this while I twist the connection. Emily, keep an eye on the dashboard." The crowd hushed momentarily, the weight of all their hopes resting on this fragile moment. Joe felt the tension swirl, thick in the air as he worked with fierce focus. "I'm not letting Gil win this," he whispered fiercely, determination burning bright. They were more than just kids looking to throw a good festival. They were a team. Lily's hands shook slightly, but she held steady, glancing occasionally toward the crowd that had gathered. "You think they'll start chanting our name if we pull this off?" "Sure." Joe laughed, if only for a second to lighten the moment. But the laughter quickly faded as he focused again. "Okay, on 3, 1, 2." At that moment, a cheer erupted from across the fairgrounds as another booth illuminated brightly. Joe's breath caught. "Now!" he exclaimed, twisting the wire and hitting the switch. Nothing. The collective groan from the crowd sent a shiver down his spine. His hopes dimmed again as Gil strutted by, his grin dripping with disdain. "Still can't hack it, huh? How tragic," he taunted, but just as despair began to settle in, a flicker cut through the darkness. Joe's heart leaped. "What was that?" he asked, breathless. Emily leaned closer, eyes wide. I think we're getting power." With one last push, Joe pressed the switch again. The generator sputtered to life, a crackling roar that ignited relief in his chest. Lights burst on, illuminating their booth with a vibrant glow. Cheers erupted from the crowd, and a wave of joy washed over him. "Yes!" he shouted, adrenaline surging. They had done it. But just as they began to celebrate, Gil's voice rang out once more. "Congratulations on your little miracle. But the real fun is just beginning. Let us see how long you can keep this up." What did he mean? Joe exchanged a worried glance with his friends. Guys, whatever he's planning, we need to be ready. As they took a moment to celebrate their small victory, it was clear that one challenge was just over, while the next danger loomed ever closer. What new trick was Gil preparing? Would their spirit hold against whatever chaos came next? The festival unfolded under a sky streaked with orange and violet, the laughter of children mixing with the scent of kettle corn wafting through the air. Joe Becker stood amidst the throngs of cheerful faces, a surge of disbelief coursing through him. Moments ago, despair had threatened to topple their efforts, yet here they were, bathed in the warm glow of success. "Can you believe it? We did it!" Lily shouted, her voice bright with youthful zeal. She bounced on the balls of her feet, eyes sparkling, proud of their collective effort. Joe knelt to her level, ruffling her hair. "You were amazing, kiddo. That booth is gonna be a blast." But just as the spirit of joy thrived, Joe could still sense the shadow of Gil lurking. He glanced toward the opposite side of the festival where Gil stood, arms crossed, directing a group of menacing figures toward a nearby vendor. The look in Gil's eyes said it all. Wasn't he done yet? "Stay close to me," Joe instructed Lily, the urgency tinting his voice. He shared a worried glance with Emily, who was surveying the crowd like a hawk, her instincts sharp. "Something's not right," she said softly, tension lacing her words. "We can't let him ruin this for everyone." Joe nodded resolutely. They had come too far to back down now. "Let us regroup," he said. "Everyone, meet at the generator." As the festival buzzed around them, they quickly gathered their small team: Emily, Lily, Charlie, and a few others from the community who had rallied behind them. "All right," Joe called, ready to form a strategy against Gil's impending chaos. "I suspect Gil has plans to disrupt our efforts tonight. We need to watch out for any tricks he might pull." The group murmured affirmatively, eyes filling with fire. "We'll stay vigilant," Emily said, her voice steady. "We have to protect what we've built, not just for us but for everyone in Maplewood." Lily added, "Yeah. We can't let him win." The flow of confidence suffused the air, tracing through each member of the team like an electric shock. With renewed determination, they spread out, scanning their surroundings, keeping an eye on the festival as well as the jerky movements of Gil and his accomplices. That's when the music amplified, the beats pulsating through the crowd as decorations danced in the breeze. Joe couldn't let the uncertainty creep back in. He had to ensure this festival represented hope, a beacon against darkness. However, amid the joyful chorus, an explosion of loud laughter punctured the air. Joe froze, instinctively turning his gaze to where Gil stood. "Welcome, ladies and gentlemen," he boomed through the megaphone. "You are about to witness the real show." Without warning, Gil commanded a group of performers who'd been hidden behind the nearby tents, suddenly spilling out chaos. They hooted and hollered, launching pies into the crowd. Laughter turned into chaos as people ducked and dodged to avoid being splattered. Joe's heart sank. Gil's disruption was here, turning what should have been a celebration into a mess. "We can't let this go on," he yelled, rallying the team. "We need to corral this before it spreads." Lily rallied her friends, quickly directing them to form a line, helping to redirect the chaos. Meanwhile, Joe and Emily rushed to help the nearby vendors, ensuring they could salvage the festival atmosphere and keep the momentum alive. "Be quick, people," Emily called, her spirit infectious. "We can't let him overshadow our hard work. Let us make sure everyone enjoys the real fun." As they worked, Joe felt the spark ignite in the crowd again. Their own laughter began to rival the shenanigans. One moment led to another, as neighbors stepped in with playful challenges, engaging with Gil's antics creatively. One by one, laughter returned, with unexpected games and light-hearted pie-eating contests emerging, lightening the mood. Joe glanced at Emily, who had transformed the chaos with her determination, leading a group of kids in an impromptu pie toss back at Gil's crew. With each play, joy swept through the festival like a tidal wave. Gil looked increasingly bewildered as His plan to sabotage the celebration twisted into a source of unexpected delight. Finally seeing the tide shift, Joe felt a spark of courage flow through him. "Hey, everyone!" he called out, grabbing the megaphone Gil had momentarily dropped in his frantic efforts. "Let's turn Gil's turmoil into a celebration. Let's show him how Maplewood knows how to party." Cheers erupted, and amidst the laughter, Joe turned back to Gil, who now looked entirely flustered. "You tricked us into a challenge," Joe said, voice ringing. "But we've risen above it together, because that's what family does." The mood surged. The community rallied around fond memories and built a renewed sense of strength. Even the surprises earlier, now transformed into laughter and cheer, brought smiles across every face. As the clouds of despair lifted, Joe soaked it all in his daughter laughing, Emily's radiant smile, and the voices of his neighbors harmonizing in celebration. It was no longer about Gil's challenges, it wasn't about winning nor losing. It was about love and community. In a bittersweet twist of fate, Gil had inadvertently ignited a flame that had always been there, a flame of unity that could never be extinguished. With renewed hope blooming in his heart, Joe Becker glanced over the thriving crowd. It was a lesson he would carry always. Their real power flowed not from riches or status, but from one another. A realization washed over him: the foundation of family and community was far more enriching than material wealth ever would be. As the night deepened, adorned with lights now twinkling against the stars, Joe took Emily's hand. "Thank you for believing in us. This was the spark we needed." She smiled, her eyes filled with warmth. "Together, we can take on whatever comes next." As laughter and light bounced back into the night, Joe felt ready. They wouldn't let darkness dim their light. They were Maplewood, together through every challenge, and they would keep shining bright. Now, here's the game-changing moment. If you've enjoyed this story and want to keep the inspiration flowing, you need to subscribe now. Don't miss out on the next exclusive tales that will fill your heart. Hit that like button, because your support feeds the algorithm that lets others know they're not alone. I want to hear what you think about this ending. Comment your thoughts and feelings below. And please, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to feel this transformation today. Don't wait not even one more second. Spread the love and light.